All right, welcome everyone to our lecture series, Designing with Criticality and Love, where we invite new and established voices to share their stories, knowledge, and ideas with the community. This spring, we're inviting artists and designers to share with us how they approach the practice from a place of criticality and love. We are Type Electives, an online design school trying to shape the future of type, co-founded by Lin Yun and me, Juan Villanueva. We try to offer courses that go beyond traditional type design education, which involves lettering, creative coding, and all of those things in between. And we're really proud of our faculty, who are made up of people that approach their practice from a place of respect, responsibility, criticality, and love, which is the theme of this series. And we're excited also to work with students and reach people that kind of like share the same principles with us. And in terms of upcoming events, we're really excited for our talks that are happening next week and the week after. And then we also have 2 in-person events. David John Walker next week is going to be talking to us about his lettering practice and also his art practice and how to approach things from a place of emotion. Then Jen Ramirez is going to be talking about sign painting and also his own personal practice as a person involved with the community in design and also sign painting and arts and crafts. April 14th, we have an in-person event. If you attended our Pixel type workshop, this one is gonna be really exciting. We'll reveal more in the upcoming weeks, but save the date and look up the space, and hopefully we can meet you all in person in Gowanus in April 14th. And our last thing, we have a really big in-person event happening on April 19th. This is going to be a panel discussion conversation with Kelly Anderson, Beatrice Lozano, and Trey Seals. It's going to be at Wix Playground. So thank you, Wix, for helping us with the space. And yeah, we'll be posting the link to the site soon, so you can start getting your tickets. Everything here is free, so please share, come to our online and also in person. We would love to get to know you a little bit more and meet you and share as much as we can with the community.
I am so excited to have Libbie joining us for today's lecture. I'm sure all of you who are tuning in are super big fans, as am I. Libbie is a California-based type designer. After graduating Type West in 2020, she opened her own type foundry, Type du Nord. She started by making 52 fonts in 1 year and is now focusing on building her type library. I'm so stoked that we'll get to hear from Libbie, and as many of you may know, Libbie just finished up teaching her class on a crash course in type design this past semester, and we're just always constantly so impressed with everything that Libbie does. I mean, it creates, writes about all the things. Like, I mean, I'm sure Libbie will share a lot with us, but I'm just always constantly so impressed by the variety of expression in your work. And we were just talking about how impressive Libbie's newsletter is, and like every time I get it, I get really excited in the morning. I'm like, oh, I get to like hear from Libbie again. So if you haven't subscribed to the Type du Nord newsletter, do it. It's going to be the best choice that you've made today. So definitely get that on your radars if you aren't on there yet. All right, Libbie, I'll hand off the mic to you.
Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. All righty. All right, today I'm going to be walking through my journey to becoming a type designer. For me, I feel like I need to start at the very beginning to, add full context to the story. And my journey started in 2015. Before this, I didn't really even know that type design was like a job. I just thought that people made fonts for fun. It wasn't until my senior year of college, I went to a AIGA conference and James Edmondson was speaking. And he talked about his time at Type Media and starting Oh No Typeco, and that like really set off a spark in me. And during that talk, I leaned over to my friend Kim and I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want to do. So that set me off on this whole journey to becoming a type designer. So thanks, James, for that. But obviously the first thing I had to do was graduate my undergrad because I was like 6 months away. And I was so dead set on this that I decided to make a font for my senior capstone project. And I'm showing this because it's like the first time I ever attempted type design. And most people used this like their senior capstone to like make some cool branding or like do an app. And I was just like the nerd in the corner making fonts. But this one is special to me because I made it based off of my grandmother. She's the one that taught me how to like knit and sew and draw and like basically kickstarted my whole creative side. And so I wanted to honor her with my, college project. And so after I graduated, I worked as a graphic designer for a little while. I specifically was working at Gushers, like the candy with the goo inside of it. I was making essentially memes for their Instagram page for a few years, which was like, it was pretty fun. But throughout this time, I was still working on like a lot of lettering and doing a lot of type stuff. I even had the chance to take a workshop with Stuart Sandler of Font Diner. He did a glyphs workshop like in the middle of Wisconsin, which was really cool. Like it's so hard to find in that area, but I was like, I'm so there. But this workshop was really eye-opening for me because obviously it was like my first introduction into like how to use glyphs correctly and like, think about the full function of a typeface. And like, it really opened my eyes to the possibility of like going to school again because I learned so much in just a 2-day workshop. And so then I was like, what could I do in like a year-long program? So in 2019, I ended up getting laid off, which was kind of a bummer, but I was like thinking about getting another job and like, I don't know, was a little bit, feeling a little bit down in the dumps as a layoff tends to do. But right after this happened, Type West opened up their applications and I was talking to my partner, Alex, and I was like, what would you say if I like, I don't know, apply to Type West and if I get in, we just like move to California? And he was like, he knew about, my goals and ambitions. So he was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do change of scenery and see what happens. And so I got accepted. It was pretty cool. I was like, I definitely got emotional when I got accepted. I was really, really stoked. So then of course our journey looks like this for like a week. We drove from Minneapolis all the way to San Francisco and apologies to Alex, I couldn't find a picture facing forward so he gets to stare us like dead in the face while I'm on the slide. But yeah, this part of the journey, not really for the faint of heart, but worth it nonetheless. So now we enter the Type West era, and this was huge for me because like having instructor guidance and having weekly check-ins and the camaraderie with the students was like just incredible for me. We started off with a revival font, revival typeface, which is the one you're seeing here. Mine is a French font or French typeface from a type foundry that was around in like the late 1700s. I think this font is specifically from the 1790s. And I love the little like star asterisks. Of course, I had to like keep that in there. And of course, I had to like design some wine labels and show off the punctuation and all that. This was like really fun for me to like learn the basics and just like get comfortable with all of it. So right in between the two different parts of Type West, the like revival part and the original typeface, COVID hits. And that was like obviously a huge bummer for everyone. I got the weird luxury of doing in-person classes and then suddenly switching to online school. And yeah, it It was a little bit of a struggle, but we persevered. So this was my final type family for my like original design for Type West, and it's called Levangela. It has 4 styles. We have a bold italic, the kind of like thinner upright version, and a script version, which was, I don't know if I recommend doing that if anyone is in type school right now, but it was fun for me, a fun challenge for me. And then I attempted like a text space, but it really only looks good at like 16 points. And then for my specimen, I was really obsessed with gardening at the time. So I did like a gardening themed or floral themed specimen. And of course I had to make some like fake stickers with garden puns on them because I just love puns. I am what I am. Okay, so I graduated Type West, and like that was crazy. Again, like really emotional. I was super excited. Yeah, it was like a long time coming. But then after you graduate of type school, there's this weird thing that happens where you kind of expect yourself to be further along, but you realize that you can't possibly learn everything that you need to know about type in 1 year. It's just like not possible. And then if you also want to become an independent type designer, that's like a whole second set of skills. So then I was like, oh my gosh, I kind of thought I'd be like, you know, at the end of the journey after that, but there's still a long way to go. And so I wanted to talk about this Karen Chang quote because this is exactly how I felt. She says, the more I learn, the less I know. And she talked specifically about type design when she said this, which was just so like exactly how I was feeling. So now I'm asking myself, like, now what? What do I do post Type West? I kind of set that goal and I made it there and just really didn't know what to do with myself next. So I raised my hand to be the TA for the next year's Type West program, and that was great because I, you know, got to stay involved in type education and like, you know, be more on the education side of things, which was really great for me. I also made the scary leap of like quitting my job. Type West is a night school, so you can work full-time during it. And I was starting to get a little burnt out from like working all day and like doing type stuff at night. And then I decided that it was time to like fully dedicate myself to doing type full-time. And this is where 52 Fonts comes in. I started this project in April of 2021, and it went all the way until May of 2022, so a little over a year. This is a type design project where I created a font every week for 52 weeks. And a lot of people ask me why I would do something like this, because obviously it's like crazy ambitious, but and most people would just make a font, you know, the normal way, like one at a time, go slow, you know, the normal way. But I was really missing the structure that school provided. So like having weekly check-ins with instructors was so helpful, and you know, growing alongside of my fellow classmates was really you know, helpful for growth and being pushed in the right direction. So I wanted to kind of add that structure back into my life, and making another font felt incredibly intimidating. And I don't know if I'm the only one that felt like this, but it's just like having made 2 fonts that I was proud of, and then like just jumping into a third felt like just a crazy roadblock. I don't know. And I really wanted to force myself to just work on type projects regularly and like really get comfortable putting my work out there, because I'm, you know, just like a naturally shy person and definitely find it difficult to just be like, hey, look at my work, look at all this cool stuff I'm doing. So this project kind of had a built-in marketing aspect, let's say. I was really inspired by the Pipe project, and this is a project by Elmer Stefan where he put out a font every week for 52 weeks as well, back in 2016. And I really liked the structure of that and like the immediacy and the just the whole setup. But he mostly used components and glyphs to kind of expedite his design process, and then used a lot of like historical references. So definitely go check out the Pipe project. It's really cool. And then, of course, I have to mention Font of the Month Club by DJR. He's putting out a font every single month, and they are available for his club members. It's really cool to see him use his platform to test styles and add to existing families, and that's an aspect of it I really liked. And from a business perspective, that's like really smart to get like instant feedback on things. And of course, every good project has parameters and kind of like ground rules. For me, I wanted each font to be available for 1 week. And then so as soon as the new font came out, the old one would expire. And so that would just kind of like keep it fresh, keep it feeling like experimental and ephemeral. Yeah. And I kept the character set undefined, which this one I kind of went back and forth on, but I wanted each concept or each font to kind of fulfill its intended purpose and be more usable for a specific reason than have a specific character set. So if I was going to make a font for like infographics, let's say, I would make numbers and like punctuation and like fun symbols, and maybe not necessarily do A through Z for that. And then each font was released via email, and that included like the process behind it and some specimen images and obviously the link to download. So I want to zoom in on this part of the journey a little bit, because obviously I learned a lot, but I'm going to go through each part of it quickly because I don't, going through every week would be like incredibly boring. But I learned a lot like in the very first week. Obviously, like putting my first, release out there was really scary. And I started with this font named after my wonderful partner, Alex. This font, I don't like dislike this font for any reason, but the style was ultimately like too ambitious. And so obviously not being used to the like week timeline made it tricky, and doing something overly ambitious made it so that like I didn't have caps or punctuation. I only made like 2 specimen images, and I really struggled with the writing part of it. So that was really hard, and that led to me releasing it like later in the evening when my goal was to release it like midday. So yeah, just kind of learned a lot right out of the gate. But as I get going and get into the project a little bit, I started to get more comfortable with some things. And so we enter like the middle phase of the project. I accepted that like it's okay to not be perfect. Like nothing I make within a week is going to be, the absolutely most polished thing of all time, but that's okay. It's all for like fun and experimentation's sake. And yeah, accepting that was definitely eye-opening. Specimen images were a bit of a struggle at first, but I realized that if you kind of let the font guide you and the style of it guide you, it kind of happens on its own. So like trying to force fonts into situations they don't want to be in like makes it a struggle, but sometimes they just kind of guide themselves. I discovered that I really like writing. I kind of at first was frustrated because I wanted to sound like really like scholarly and fancy, but if I just let myself write casually like I want to, then it turns out it's a fun and creative practice just like anything else. And being able to articulate, your process and your ideas is really important. And then drawing and experimenting are my favorite parts of the whole process. Like that was definitely the highlight of each week. And so we arrive at the end, and I'm going to get into kind of like the nitty gritty of the project. But first, I wanted to show off all the fonts. And the first time I put this spread together, it was for the zine that I made right after. And I definitely got emotional looking at all this because I could not believe that I pulled it off. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy to look at. And I want to give a little shout out to Tommy Sharp. She subbed in for me on one of the last weeks. I was super fried and I was like, Tommy, do you have a font you might want to share in my newsletter? And she was like 100% game. And she submitted Cortinas, and it was great to have like a new perspective. And she's the designer behind Taters on Future Fonts, which of course we all love. So thanks, Tommy, for that. And then I'm going to go through the key takeaways of the project. And of course, this is the most professional slide of mine, so I had to set it in egg font to kind of like, you know, balance it out. So I kind of thought my like drawing process and my ideation project process would be really refined, and I'd like have a specific style and a certain way that I draw things, you know, after doing this for a whole year. But I kind of realized that I like to keep it fresh, whether it's drawing with pencils or markers or a brush. I really like to try new things every time. It keeps it pretty fun for me. So this is, in the end, this is how every week started to look. Monday, I'd obviously do some like ideation and concepting and see what idea I wanted to work through that week. And then Tuesday, I would do some digitizing and kind of like make it into a real font, make sure everything is working. And then Wednesday and Thursday were more like production days and doing some proofing and finalizing and all the scary like detail stuff. And then Friday was the day that I presented it to everyone. So I'd send it out via email. I'd put together like the process and the images and send it out into the world. And for the first few weeks, Friday was my scary day for sure. And then before I did this project, I knew that I was going to keep Saturday and Sunday as like no type design days because having time to rest is really important, and I really didn't want this project to burn me out. And that, in the end, that was a really good call. So for me, I discovered where I like to find type references, and you know, antique stores and secondhand shops are just like chock full of cool packaging and like funky artwork sometimes that has cool type in it. Boat lettering is really specific to me. I'm like a huge fan of boats. But each boat has a name, and typically they're like either hand painted on the back or, you know, done in some like cool woodwork or something like that. And I'm not talking like fancy yachts. I'm talking like a 20-foot sailboat where somebody's cousin like painted the name on the back. That tends to be where like the cool stuff is. And then vintage magazine ads and album covers are just, you know, obviously ripe with type. And so in the end, I had about 1,513 email subscribers, which for me is a scary number. I feel like other people might feel chill about this, but my comfort threshold is like 30 people. So sending out an email to this many people every week is like, woof. But yeah. Obviously the goal of this project was not to make money or anything. Like the fonts were available for free, but there was the option to donate money with each week. And so I think it's interesting to see how much comes in on this kind of project. So throughout the year, I made $927 total. Levangela script was the top earner. That one was the last week though. So I feel like it was a little bit like congratulations money and stuff like that, which was really sweet. And then Dazzle Razzle and Mercredi were the other top two. And in total, at the end, there was about 3,912 total downloads, which averages to about 75 downloads per font. In reality, it was more like 20 for the weird ones and then like 100 for the really, functional, nice kind of chill ones. So the top most downloaded one was the very first week was Alexander the Babe, and then Backflip takes the second and third place spots. Backflip was one that I didn't feel that confident about when I put out originally, but then people loved it and it was like consistently the most downloaded. So I did a couple more versions of it and it became like a really fun project to work on. And I want to talk about my favorites because these are just obviously subjective to me, but Mr. Rightside was one that was a really kind of weird concept. It was a blind contour drawing turned like continuous line typeface. And when I first made it, I think I showed it to Tommy and was like, is this weird? I don't know. I don't know about this one. And she was like, no, put it out. It's cool. It's cool. And so, yeah, when I put it out, it got some great feedback and it's become one of my favorites and just like a fun, weird one to work on. Obviously, Levangela script is really special because it was part of my Type West project. I ended up revisiting it in the final week of the 52 fonts project. Just kind of like redid some caps and like finesse some things. So that was fun. Sako comes from a vintage like knitting magazine reference. It was the title for like a sock pattern. And so it's just kind of like a crossover design for me and like special because of that. And then Drench and Pulp were both ones that I drew, I think, from type cookers, and I just ended up liking the style and still use them quite a lot. And I also, this is my wall of shame. These are the ones I like the absolute least. And it's not to be like judgmental of myself because I don't like hate them, but Buds was a concept I tried twice. I really wanted to make a flower font work. In my head, it seems like it could be so cool, but both times I tried it, it was like an absolute fail. It just like isn't, it never panned out the way I wanted it to. Spook City was one that was like a Halloween one, but the fins are like kind of too thin and it's not that usable. When I went to make specimens of it, it was like, no, this one's not my fave. And then Buffy was, I do like the design of this one, but it is similar to the first week where the design is just like a little ambitious for 1 week. Like doing black letter in just a handful of days is like too much. So I think it's one I might revisit in the future, but yeah, definitely a struggle. More rotated is, it was kind of like this concept of a variable font that I had that could like animate in a bunch of ways and like rotation was part of it. But if you just look at the rotated version, like the spacing becomes really weird and like the baseline looks wonky and it's just like, in the end, I was like, it's cool as an animation, but outside of that, not my fave. Sorry, I'm being a little ruthless. I feel like it's interesting to share. Antiseptic was one that I don't hate this one, but it's ultimately just not really my style. So it's on the wall of shame. And I wanted to go through some personal lessons that I learned because I think, those are always fun to share. I learned in this project that nobody really knows, what you're capable of or what you can do or what you want to do until you show them regularly. It's like, it's annoying, but you have to put yourself out there. Otherwise, no one will remember, who you are and what you want to do. This one's kind of straightforward, but for me, it's like, it's just important to make the work that you've been wanting to make. Like the projects or the fonts that I worked on for the 52 fonts projects, the ones that felt the most true to me and the ones that I was most excited about ended up being the most successful in the end. I think it's just important to, you know, be authentic, do your own thing. And then avoid the shoulds, woulds, and coulds. And for me, that looks like spending an extra 20 minutes on something to make myself feel like really proud of it, instead of putting things out that, you know, I don't necessarily love and feel comfortable with, because that ultimately like eats at your self-confidence. So we arrive, my little avatar arrives at the end of the journey. And so this is the here and now. I would say that I don't know if I'm totally like there yet, but like I guess I am a working type designer. That is what I do now, which is really fun. Just a casual 8 years in the making. But I've been working a lot on my own foundry, which is Type du Nord. I'm going to have like an official website and like sell fonts and do it the normal way. And that'll be happening soon. But then I also wanted to talk about Sacco, and this would be my very first release. This is going to be through Kel Trofton's new foundry, Overlap Type. He started an experimental foundry where all of the fonts that are part of the library will be type that like overlaps on itself in an interesting way. And yeah, so that'll be released in the spring of this year, which is very exciting. And then of course I wanted to talk about my class, because that's obviously why I'm here with Lynn and Juan today. I just finished a crash course in type design this 2 weeks ago or so. And my students in that class absolutely blew me away. They had 5 weeks to do caps A through Z, and most of them went like above and beyond and absolutely knocked it out of the park. Yeah, some of them even did like, there's some ligatures down there. There's some like cool Western vibes. Yeah, it just, a lot of them were absolute beginners too, and just like really took it and ran with it. And it was fun to share like my knowledge of making like type really fast. Yeah, but I'm really proud of them. It was really great. And I will be teaching this class again, maybe this summer, but definitely in the fall, if not this summer. So keep an eye out for that. Sign up for newsletters, stay in the loop. And now we reached the end of the journey. So thanks, Lynn and Juan, for having me. And thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm looking forward to your questions, and yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Libbie. I'm so impressed, that I love these infographics. They're so good. I love all of that. I love the arms, and like especially the one where you were moving to California with Alex. And what's your dog's name?
Morty.
Morty. It was so,
Yeah.
it's so good. There's yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, now we're open for questions. Very, very exciting.
Thank you.
So if folks have questions, pop them in the chat. And we have our first question from Tiffany. What would you do on weeks where you got stuck in the process? There seems to be so little time in that tight schedule to get unstuck. And I think all of us are wondering the same. Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, I kind of approached it differently every time it happened, but for me, sometimes I would try out multiple concepts, so that if I was like going down the road on one and it didn't really work out, I would kind of pivot to my like plan B idea, or I would have like a reference I really wanted to try out, like if I found some like cool signage or something. So having like back burner ideas definitely was my saving grace, but I definitely learned how to be scrappy and like how to test things really quickly. Starting with problem characters helps a lot, like X and Z and S, and if those all work, then like then like it was probably fine. But yeah, and ultimately like there's some that I put out, obviously there was a wall of shame. You know, yeah, doing a whole year's worth of something, I'm not gonna love every single thing, but having plan B ideas helped quite a lot.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think, yeah, I do have a question because you brought up this idea of plan B.
Mhm.
And just because it's so smart, like you obviously you have to deliver. That's the premise. But
Mhm.
I'm curious about kind of like if any of those plan B ideas actually made it, and maybe they surprised you because you might have kept in your pocket, but then they ended up being really cool and like I don't know.
Yeah. I think Sokka was a plan B idea, which turned out to be one of like my favorites from the project. I can't remember which other ones were started as plan B, but I had a handful of like concepts already started before I started this project. And so sometimes I would revert to those of like, this has been tested, I know it works, but it's not finished. So I'll just like finish it and get through it. Cause like obviously we don't have the stamina to like completely come up with a new concept every single idea or every single week. So yeah, having back burner concepts, plan B ideas, buffering every week with you know safety projects was definitely really helpful.
That's awesome. I love soccer so much. I can't believe that was a plan B idea. Like it's,
Hmm.
I'm
I
surprised.
think I was just casually looking through the knitting magazine because I was like frustrated with whatever I was trying to do, and I was like, I'll take a break and think about knitting. And then I was like, oh my god, wait, Sako. Yeah, so then I just ran with
amazing.
it.
For
Yeah.
folks who don't know, Libbie is also an amazing knitter. Like you're
Thanks.
person of many talents. I have no idea how you do it all. Amazing.
Spend all my time on it. That's what we did.
We have another question from Sarah in the chat. I love the idea of doing a project like this, but I feel like an amateur might teach themselves bad habits. Did you feel that way at all, or does a project like this, course correct itself?
I think it's something that kind of course corrects itself. Like working on something over and over again, like you're naturally just gonna learn the issues with it. For me though, like I had been through type school, so it wasn't like I had started this before that and kind of I kind of had a base knowledge already, which was really helpful. But I think having just taught students that were beginners, like I think all of them at the end of that 5 weeks could have definitely done this project. Like it's something that just you learn over time, I think. And if you're really immersed in it, like this kind of project, you can't really help but learn from it. So I think it self corrects, but I don't know. I guess maybe it's person dependent.
I mean, if you're, what is it called? Pencil mileage, where you do something for so long that it's the course correction that you're talking about. Do you feel like it definitely applies here? For
Oh yeah. Well, and trying out so many different concepts, it's like you ultimately just learn certain things that I don't think I would have learned had I spent that year working on one typeface. Which like as somebody who still felt like a student and a beginner at the beginning of it, was really helpful. And then I kind of learned what like I like to work on. And like what my, you know, own decisions and style would be. So yeah.
I feel like it's such a different take on like all these like I guess like a little bit clickbaity articles that you see about like this typeface took 10 years to make. But like it's like the opposite where like it's like
5 days.
making one every week. 5 days. I was blown away when you said I try to take the weekend off. I was like, what? You have everything. You have the rest, you have the work, all the things.
Yes. Well, and for full transparency's sake, I was like a freelance designer at the time. So I could kind of like dictate my own schedule and like work a little less. I had like saved up and prepped for it. It wasn't like I just wasn't working on, other things too, but I did have a lot more chill of a schedule than when I was working full time. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was working full time.
But still, not everyone can do it, and you're Libbie, so you can do it. We have a very relevant question from Tiffany. I know it's the secret sauce of your class, but what is your most novel trick from the 52 weeks for making a typeface quickly once you have your concept?
Oh my God, I don't know. I don't think there is a secret sauce. Is that bad?
You just have to you just have to do it, I suppose.
I think it just takes a lot of like testing quickly, and like I like learned how to digitize things really fast from doing this. So generally I'd kind of like have a sketch and rough out my concept really fast, and then like make some words and like see how it felt. But there wasn't like a secret trick really, and it's more just like going for it. Like, and just not hesitating and doing it or pivoting. That's basically it.
I mean, maybe in some ways it's better that there's no, some super secret, like.
No. Yeah. I mean, and like I went into it with some base knowledge, and obviously that was incredibly helpful. But yeah, there wasn't like a trick really. You get really fast at like building letters off of other letters and doing like test words that kind of set you up for that. So certain like process parts of it help, but they're not, I wouldn't say it's like a secret trick that nobody knows.
Yeah. I feel like the trick is kind of like figuring out your own process, like because
Mhm.
doing it every week is like quite a challenge. And I love the slide where you can like break down the week and
Mhm.
like this 2 days I'm gonna rest, and hopefully sometimes maybe I don't know if you can stop thinking about type or making type, but I wonder if how true were those 2 relaxation days? Like, did you find it difficult to like switch from type design to just chill and not do anything, or were there ideas brewing during those 2 days as well?
Okay, you're gonna think I'm lying, but I have such a natural aversion to work. I don't like to work. Kind of with a natural, like I'd send out my email on Friday and I'd be like, I'm not thinking about this again until Monday. And sometimes I would be like thinking about like I'd plan my next week on Friday if I was stressed about it, or like look through my idea list on Sunday night to kind of like get things percolating. But like it was very rare that I worked on the weekends. I'd only really do that if I had like a trip coming up or something going on the next week where I knew I wasn't going to be able to like dedicate the full 5 days to it. But yeah, I'm just like not really a week work on the weekends type of person.
Maybe that's the secret. Maybe the secret
Yeah,
sauce is to be
I
able
agree.
to rest.
Yes,
Yeah, you need
yes,
those times.
it's really important. I think I would have hated type design after it had I not done that. Yeah.
We have a question from Carrie in the chat. Did you get a lot of feedback from followers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people would reply to the email and like let me know if, like which one was their favorite and all of that, which was of course really great to hear. Most of the feedback I got was it was interesting because I'd post everything on Instagram throughout the week, and then I would share the download link on Friday. And the difference between like what cool fonts get Instagram likes and a lot of attention that way, but then don't get downloaded is really interesting. And then the fonts that were like more boring, but like, I don't know, less like weird and eye catching would be the most downloaded ones. And so that like interesting type of feedback that was more like data driven kind of like surprised me a little bit. But ultimately it's good to learn that before, I start like the full type to Nord business. So yeah.
I wonder if you looking at your social media feed, and I think this is maybe something that a lot of creatives who feel like they have to build up a following on social media, probably almost everyone who wants to get hired for something feels,
Mm-hmm.
is that like, oh, like, should I pursue this because this got so many more likes and exposures versus this other project that you might have held dear to your heart, but kind of flopped on social media? Like, did you ever have any of those moments where you felt
Mm-hmm.
affected by the reception?
Yeah. Mr. Right Side, one of my favorite ones, the like squiggly one. that one got like a ton of attention on social media, but then only like 30 downloads. And so it's very interesting because people still, if I use it in a presentation or like show it in some way, people are like, oh my God, I love that. But then people don't necessarily download it. And that's okay, because it's really obviously really niche. But yeah, that was one of those moments for sure where I was like, oh my God, like this one's gonna be crazy. Like everyone's gonna download it. And people did. And the people that did have used it and showed it to me, but definitely a lot less than the Instagram likes. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you were thinking about like so many, like I guess like, should I call them ideas? I feel like they're way too fully fleshed to call them ideas, but drafts perhaps. Like as you're thinking about like, you know, having a full-fledged foundry, like do you consider how each of them pairs with like some other thing, and does that affect your desire to work on it more or less as you're fleshing out the set?
Yeah, for sure. I want my foundry to kind of have a cohesive feel. So I'm kind of, the ones I'm moving forward with are ones that I like I feel like are most authentic to like me and the way that I design. And something that has informed that a lot is mostly like after the project, I've been using my own type, like to make the zine or to do any kind of like marketing or promotional stuff or like presentations, for example. And seeing which ones I naturally gravitate towards, like in a designer setting, like a graphic designer setting, is something I take into account a lot too, because like ultimately I want fonts I make to be ones I would personally use. And like, so that has helped inform those decisions as well.
Awesome. And as we're approaching top of the hour, I think we have room for maybe one or two more questions if folks have them. And in the meantime, I think what everyone always wonders is how you did, and I feel like you've touched upon all of these, and a lot of the questions have revolved around this theme. Everyone wants to be Libbie, including myself. So,
No.
do you have any like advice for people who are trying to do maybe not to the extent of 52 weeks, but like did you ever do like a trial run? Like did you try to have like a bank saved up of ideas, or do you just like do it cold turkey and it worked out? Like do you have any advice for people who are trying to ramp up to do their own little version of a long-term project like this?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but the main one is that I think I hate the like side hustle mentality. Like I'm obviously like I said, don't like to work a lot if I can help it. But doing this kind of like self-initiated project, it kind of like keeps people involved in your work, which ultimately like leads to like exciting projects or teaching a class, for example. And so like constantly putting yourself out there is like the most helpful advice I can give, because even if you're a beginner, like having somebody see your growth is really important. And like you shouldn't wait until you're absolutely perfect and the most expert level you can be to like start getting your stuff out there. And I started this project cold turkey in the sense that I didn't do a test run week or anything. I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. And I'm really stubborn. So like if I say publicly I'm gonna do something, that is the most surefire way to get myself to do something. But I did have like this mega list of like type ideas that were things I wanted to try, and like picking one of those for like the next font I worked on for a year seemed really scary. So being able to like run through most of that list in a year was incredibly helpful. And obviously it adds to like the idea of having backup ideas. But yeah, so it's, I don't know if I have any like more specific advice than that. It's just as an independent creative, like you just have to put your work out there. You just have to put yourself out there. It's not really an option anymore, which is a bummer. As much as I'd like to be a recluse, it's just not on the table.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Libbie. Well, wrap up this really lovely talk with one last question from Tiffany. Does it feel weird now that you're designing typefaces on a more quote unquote normal timeline?
Yeah, I had a little crisis similar to TypeWest ending. When this project ended, I was like, okay, now I actually have to do it, because I've been like talking about it for a year. I've been like doing all these test runs for a year, and now I gotta like commit to it. And I finally feel like the last few months I'm on a normal schedule where like I'm able to like self-initiate and be productive, but it was a really big struggle at first to like pick what to work on, especially having such a robust library of options now. So yeah, I'm finally like hunkered down, things are happening, getting scarier as I keep working, but but yeah, ultimately it'll happen. But it does feel weird. It really does feel weird.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Libbie, for sharing all
Thank you for having me.
wisdom, knowledge. I mean, like, this is just an amazing Friday conversation. We feel very inspired. I'm sure a lot of folks are just as inspired as we are. And yeah, like, tune in to typedunord.com. Is that right?
Yep, that's got all the crucial links on it.
Nice.
Yep. Yeah, go to the link, subscribe to the newsletters, experience the level of excitement that I do when I see Libbie's newsletter in my inbox. It really does give me it really does make my morning. So, like that, maybe that's a life pro tip right there.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And thank you everyone so much. Yeah, have a great weekend with rest.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, get some rest.
Bye.
Bye.